How can Christians stay positive during this coronavirus pandemic? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. Well, in case you didn't know, the coronavirus is in full swing right now. It's turned into a global pandemic, and, everything's getting very, very crazy. We're seeing some pretty big surges in cases and a mortality rate that seems to be increasing, and it seems as if nobody really has any hope. And so lots of times in these types of situations, Christians sort of come together and they start asking questions. How can we stay positive, and how can we stay hopeful, and how can we make it through these hard times? And what's really great about these questions is that there are really, really, really great answers. And what we do as Christians is we go into the Bible, because the Bible speaks to these kinds of things. The Bible is a book that talks about the human experience very extensively. That's why we have so many stories about the human experience. Everything from Adam and Eve to David to Noah and the flood to Jesus himself. I mean, these are human experiences. And what they really do is they begin to show us humanity at its darkest, humanity at its lowest points, humanity in its worst times. Not necessarily the best times, but the worst times. The stories that you remember about David typically are his worst stories. The stories that you hear about Noah and the stories that we remember about Noah is his worst story. Some of the stories we hear about Jesus and we remember about Jesus is his worst story. I mean, after all, Jesus died on a cross, and that's the story we remember. That's actually the story that we preach. So there's a lot of suffering in the Bible, and it has a lot to say about it. This is one of the reasons why we should look to the Bible during situations like these. Because not only does it tell us about these problems of suffering and this human condition, it also gives us really good advice and really, really, really great solutions. And today, we are going to look at one little tiny passage. Of the many of passages, we're going to look at one of them, and we're going to zoom in real narrow on this, and we're going to talk about it because it's very clear to us. This passage will be very clear, and it's going to provide us the solution that we're looking for. And that's what we're going to end up talking about in this video. But before we get too far into this video, I just want to tell you about my YouTube channel and why I think you should subscribe. First of all, this is a Bible study channel. And what we do here is study the Bible because we take the Bible seriously and we seriously study the Bible. So if you are looking for a Bible study that's online, that's absolutely free, congratulations, you just found it. And you can go ahead and click subscribe and the bell notification. Oh, and I forgot to tell you, my name is Adam Jordan Clark, and I publish a brand new video every single day. So this coronavirus is really, really, really starting to explode. And if you don't believe me, we can just look at the numbers here and see that it's getting a little bit crazy, actually, a little bit hectic. Globally right now, there's about 180,000 cases, and there's been about 7,000 deaths, and those numbers just continue to go up and up and up. And the problem is that here in the United States, there's about 370 million people, and we haven't really seen it start to take off yet. And so really these numbers could get very much worse, and people could get very sick here in America very quickly within the next week or two, maybe even 3 weeks. So if you're not watching this video the day that it's published, you may end up watching it later on down the road when things are starting to pick up. And that's why I'm making this video, because what we have right now is a very big crisis. I mean, we're looking at some very, very bad things happening in the very, very, very near future. And a lot of people need hope, and a lot of people need encouragement. And so that's why I've focused my YouTube channel on this particular issue. And I'm just about giving people hope now and really helping people through these times. And that's what today's video is about. We are going to be talking about helping ourselves. And so the thing that we need to keep in mind is what we are thinking, because it's our thoughts that dictate our lives. We're going to be sitting at home. If you haven't been quarantined or locked down yet, you're going to be sitting at home for a long time, and pretty much all you're going to have is the internet and your thoughts. And one of the things you're going to be thinking about the most is the coronavirus and grandma and grandpa and your mom and dad and your brothers and sisters and your friends. How are people getting sick? Are they getting sick? Are they alive? Are they in the hospital? Where's the contact? You're going to be thinking about lots of these kinds of things. And what we have to understand going into this to prepare ourselves is that we have a certain way of thinking, and it's our thoughts that dictate how we act. And if our head's not screwed on straight, we're going to act very badly. We're not going to make the right decisions. So it's very important for us to get our heads screwed on straight now and start thinking correctly about this situation. And that's really what today's video is about. It's about going to the Bible, finding some passages that talk about how we think, and trying to implement that into our life, trying to take those passages and apply them to our life. Because again, as I told you at the beginning of this video, a lot of the Bible is about human suffering and the human condition. And so it tells us when you are suffering, you need to have your head in the right place. Because if your head is in the right place, your heart will be in the right place. And if your head and your heart are in the right place, your actions, your body, your behavior will be in the right place. So let's go ahead and take a look at this passage. The book of Philippians is the book in the New Testament that talks about suffering the most, primarily because while Paul is in prison, he's writing this letter and he's expressing his anguish. He's expressing his heartbreak. He's expressing the pain and suffering that he's going through while he's sitting in prison, knowing that he's getting ready to die. And he writes these words that I just find absolutely incredible. This is what his words read. Finally, brethren, whatever things are true, whatever things are noble, whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of good report, if there is any virtue, and if there is anything praiseworthy, meditate on these things. And I find it amazing because not only are these words, ring true to us and they say a lot, we have to understand a little bit of the context here. This is a man who's sitting in prison and he's rotting and he's getting ready to die. He knows he's going to be sentenced to death and he's waiting to die. He's waiting to die in prison. And as he's sitting in prison, he's writing these words down and he's saying, look, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is trustworthy, whatever is just, whatever is praiseworthy, think on these things or meditate on these things. What is he trying to tell us? He's trying to tell us that if your head is not in the right place, if your mind is not in the right place, then you're going to be all messed up because you're going to end up thinking about all the wrong stuff. You're going to be thinking about the negative stuff. You're going to be thinking about the stuff that's going to give you heartache. You're going to be thinking about the stuff that's going to make you sad, make you down with the blues. And at these times, the hard times that we're looking at, or potentially when you're watching this video in the future, maybe the hard times that you are going through, you have to understand that being positive in these situations is very, very, very good. You sort of have to think of yourself as being like Paul. If you do become locked down or you get quarantined by the government, you're pretty much going to be in your own little prison, if you will. You're going to be locked inside your house and you can't go outside. And so you'll end up, sitting there and thinking to yourself, well, what do I do? What about this? What about that? What does Paul tell us from his own experience? Because he was sitting in prison for years. What does he tell us? He gives us some good advice. He tells us to think on these things, anything that is true. So what does that tell you? If there's some type of truth, you need to start thinking about the truth. If there's anything that's noble, you need to start thinking about the things that are noble. Anything that's just, when we talk about justice, you need to start thinking about justice. What are the things in this world that are just? Think about those things. What about purity? Things that are pure, start thinking about those things. What about things that are lovely? Think about those things. What about the things of good report? Good report is good news. Think about some good news. That's what your mind should be set on. Things of virtue, if it has any type of goodness to it, that is what you should be thinking about. Praiseworthy, that stuff where you say, yeah, man, that's awesome. That's a great thing. That's what you should be thinking about. He tells us, meditate on these things. Why does he tell us that? He tells us that very, very simply, because when you're in a dark place, there's a lot of negativity and you need hope. One of the best ways to have hope is to have your head and your mind in the right place. And that is why you should have your head in a positive place. And so therefore, Christians should be thinking about this situation in positive manners, and they should be doing exactly what Paul told us to do. My name is Adam Jordan Clark, and if you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to comment below and tell me something interesting or maybe a cool story. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell notification because I publish a brand new video every single day. My name's Adam Jordan Clark, and as always, I will see you in the next video.